All right.
Recording in progress.
So we're starting our meeting Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. There's salute to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we do the roll call, I was going to request that we make a motion. Bradley contacted me earlier today and wanted to access the use of AB 2449. So if somebody's ready to make that motion, that would be fantastic. And then we'll do a roll call excluding Bradley, but then he'll be in the meeting.
I'll make a motion to notify that Bradley is on Zoom for family caregiving.
Right, so he'll be meeting per AB 2449 and for family caregiving. And we'll do a roll call excluding Bradley for this one, and then of the future ones will include Bradley. President Redfern. Oh, you know what? I don't have a video on, so let me turn that. I just turned the video on. Apologize for that. Anyhow, I did get President Redfern's eye, and we are also looking for Director Paddleford, Director Beard, Director Jones. She might have dropped off. She did say she might have trouble. She might have to call in, but we do have 3 board members here that all approved the motion, 3-0. Bradley, you are now available to be part of the future roll call.
Thank you.
Do we have any director's comments?
I do. I'm glad to see that we're working on the front of the building. That was my little pet project. So I'm glad to see that. I also wanted to ask, you said you were doing mailers for the open house. Have you gotten those done yet? Are we gonna get to see a sample?
Yeah, get to see a sample tonight
Okay.
or at the information item.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you.
Are we supposed to attend that open house?
You don't have to. You know, the only thing you'd have, what's that?
I just want.
I mean, it would be great if you could, but the only thing we'll have to be careful about with the open house is if there's 3 of you in the room that we don't talk about district business at that time. But yeah, everybody's welcome, obviously, to come to the open house, but there's no requirement that you do.
So there's 3 of us and we're having an open house for our district, but we're
Can't
not,
talk about it.
we're not talking about what's going
Well,
on.
decision making.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
You just be sensitive to the topics. If we're all independently talking to other people from the district, you know, that would be separate. But if all 3 of you get together for a discussion about something district related, be sensitive about that.
All right.
The orders.
The hors d'oeuvres.
Okay, are we having orders?
Let's say that's a discussion for open house, for the information meeting, the information portion of the meeting.
Okay. There's gonna be a lot of the information meeting over here.
Okay, so we're done with director's comments. Do we have any public comments?
There's no public, oh, I see Karen's waiting to get back in here, so I got her back in. But there's no public in attendance currently.
So then we're ready for our general manager's report.
Yes, not much to report. I did want to say I have been researching a work order system for operations and maintenance, and I know that's been on the I've seen it over time as something that was a district goal. So I have been doing some of that, and I have worked with other work order systems in the past, so I do have some familiarity with those type of systems, but I'm really looking for something that's more simplified for us, but that'll just still help us have a program for our regular operation and maintenance. And then the other thing I was going to say is that I'm about a few weeks away from being the GM and staying as CSD for a year, in about 2 or 3 more weeks before the next board meeting.
Wow.
And it's been, I've really enjoyed it so far. I mean, there was 9 months where there was a lot happening, but with Alicia on board now, I feel like things are starting to settle in. So that's good. And that's it for me.
Legal counsel?
Oh, wait, Karen had her hand up.
No, I can't hear. Oh, there she is.
You're on mute though, Karen.
Yes, I got dropped off, but I switched to our YouTube channel. So I was listening even when I'm not on, and that will happen. And I will also call in on the landline so I can participate in votes. So thank you.
And in terms of the legal counsel's report, I don't have a report.
Board secretary?
That's me, and we do have an item coming up on the agenda later about Alicia Warren becoming our official board secretary, so that'll be a upcoming item.
Okay.
Do we have any committee reports? No.
No committee reports.
Consent items?
Yeah, there's 4 consent items: the regular meeting minutes from May 17th, the special meeting minutes from May 23rd, disbursements for the month of May, and then the attendance tracker is the last item in the packet, and all of those are in the 6 category of your notebooks. So that would be 6A, 6B, 6C, and 6D as consent items.
So what is our new trench details? That say we don't use native soil?
There's 3 different details depending on what the project is, but essentially it's a slurry seal where there used to be native soil. And those, we have one project that will likely happen in August, the Cayetito Mainline Extension Project, and that'll be the first project where we do the slurry seal in the trench versus the native soil.
Great. So avoid a lot of headaches.
I think so.
All right.
I have had an I'm sorry. I've had an
Go ahead.
opportunity to review the packet, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that. The entire thing? We're just gonna skip all, go through all 4 of them at once?
Yeah, but that's what we usually do. We reviewed them,
I've reviewed them too, but that's fine.
Who was the second? Was that?
No, I have a question about D on the disbursement board of attendance. I don't see the meeting that we had for, the legal meeting.
That was the special board meeting.
Okay.
Along at the very top, 5/23/23.
Okay. And then what about the regular board meeting? What am I missing here?
We'll have this board meeting in the next meeting. because
Oh,
I'm
okay.
never sure who's going to be here or
Okay,
not.
all right.
And the other thing that based on board compensation, the next meeting will take into, consideration item that's coming up as one of our action items on, action on G. So there was that the extent of the question?
Yeah.
Okay. There was a motion and a second by Director Beard, and the original motion was by Vice President Jones. I'll do the roll call vote. President Redfern.
Aye.
Director Paddleford.
Aye.
Director Beard.
Aye.
Director Van Pelt.
Aye.
Vice President Jones.
Hi.
The consent items are approved on a 5-0 vote. On the action items. Very good. Our first action item is in regard to considering the retainer for Rick Battles, our current legal counsel, for 1 year. What I had done is include Mr. Battles' retainer as part of the attachment to the memo, which you can see just past the board memo. The fiscal implications I tried to summarize in the fiscal implication portion of the board memo that, and I'll just read this real quickly. For services provided to the district, Rick will provide a flat monthly retainer fee of $1,540. That represents the equivalent of 4 hours of time at a billing rate of $385. If he spends more than the 4 hours of time providing services to the district during any calendar month, that additional time will be billed at the rate of $385 per hour. I did request that Mr. Battles be here this evening for the discussion in case there were any questions beyond my understanding of this. But if there's any questions of the board or if Mr. Battles would like to say something before we start our discussion, practical. Rick, is there anything you'd like to?
Am I being asked to comment?
Yeah, if you want to, you don't have to. We could just go
Okay.
right into board if you want.
Well, I can just explain sort of the genesis of this. I had made the decision to retire as of June 30th, provided about 3 months notice, thinking that would be enough time for the district to secure replacement legal counsel. But even assuming that were to happen by July 1, it seemed to me, given the number of years that I represented the district, there's a considerable amount of institutional knowledge that might be helpful to have me assist with the transition on. The thinking being, if the district or the new attorney has a question about how the district does things, why the district does things certain ways, where information can be found, sort of historical information, they could contact me and I would provide information in that regard in terms of the background and assistance as necessary. Then documents that I might have access to, all of which won't necessarily get transferred over to the new attorney in one shot. So it's just to be available on sort of a standby basis for a period of time to assist with that transition to the extent needed.
Thank you.
And this time, we're looking at a year, or are we looking at 6 months, or?
It's got a 1-year term, but it can be terminated at any time if it works out that my services aren't needed. Then the agreement can be terminated on. I think it says in the terms and conditions. Let me take a quick look. It's 30 or 60 days, I think, for the termination. 60 days. This is under the general terms and conditions, the last paragraph. It can be terminated at any time by either party providing 60 days prior written notice.
Yeah, on the very last page.
Yeah.
of the-
Yeah.
Mhm. Looks like Karen, Miss Director Jones has a question.
I had both hands up. I had a comment, and that is all that in our previous discussions regarding this issue, I think there was consensus on the board that that would be very valuable to keep Mr. Battles on retainer. I don't have any questions. I would just like to say that I support the idea of it, and I think it's a smart way to go.
The motion?
Mhm.
I would like it to be, let me pull up my recommendation. I'm a two screener here.
Wait,
We have
hang
another
on.
question. Do we have any legal counsel yet, or have we found any likely?
Well, we published and we'll talk a little bit about this, but we might as well do it now, but it was going to be information items. We did publish the RFP, and Mr. Battles gave me, I think it was either 4 or 6 different firms to contact. And then I also reached out to 2 firms that I was familiar with. And I also put the information out on the CFDA website, the California Special Districts Association website. And we've had some response from that too. We only have 1 submittal at this point, but there's at least 3 or 4 other firms that are interested in submitting. They have until July 7th to get those back to us.
Okay. That's good.
Looks like Director Jones has a question or.
I'd like to make a motion that we retain Rick Battles, our current legal counsel, to assist the district with, or while transitioning to new legal counsel as outlined in the attached retainer agreement for legal services.
I'll second that.
So there was a motion and a second to retain Rick Battles, current legal counsel, to assist the district while transitioning to new legal counsel as outlined in the attached retainer agreement for legal services. I'll do a roll call vote for this.
I didn't know we were finished discussing it, but, because my thinking is that it's great to have Rick for 6 months. We have someone that I guess we can stop it with 60 days and they're still in okay shape. So I guess I'm good with it. Go ahead.
Okay. President Redford,
I,
Director Paddleford,
I,
Director Beard,
I,
Director Van Pelt,
Aye.
Vice President Jones.
Aye.
We had a motion, a second, and unanimous approval of the proposed motion, 5-0. And thank you, Mr. Battles, for being here this evening. Appreciate
Okay,
you.
well, thank you.
Additional
And Bill, do you want to send me have Director Redfern sign the agreement or the engagement letter and send me a copy?
Yes, I will do that.
Okay. Okay, great. And then I guess I'll sign off for the balance of the meeting.
Rick?
Yes, sir.
I'm sure glad that you're still going to be a part of our team for from
Well-
months forward. So look forward to seeing you. Thanks for your time.
Okay, you're welcome. I'll look forward to it also.
Good.
Righty. Good night.
thank
Right.
you.
Good night.
Thank you, Rick. All right, the next action item is a consultant presentation for district divisions. We have Jason Barnes on the line with us this evening, and he is from Plan West Partners, and they have been helping us with the district divisions. And if you're ready, Jason, I think we are as well.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Disabled public participation screen scare. I think you gotta allow me to share, possibly.
Mike, do I have to make you a host possibly?
Yeah, maybe.
All right, let's try that.
How's that?
Yep,
Working.
looks like we made it.
Okay. Can you see the main
Yeah.
screen here?
Yep.
Okay, sounds like we're good. All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Jason Barnes. I'm the GIS analyst and demographer with Plan West. And as Locke said, we've been contracted to help you guys with the division elections. So I'll make this short and sweet. Basically, what we're going to talk to today is the transition from your current at-large to by-division elections. We'll talk a little bit about the California Voting Rights Act, protected classes, and communities of interest, the current district demographics, the process to creating these divisions, and then a little bit of our ways for, I don't think there's any public here, but ways public, if they do decide to comment, ways they can provide some input. So why are we here? Well, basically, the California Voting Rights Act of 2002, which essentially is built off of the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965, prohibits at-large elections if it would impair the ability of a protected class. And so essentially, the California Voting Rights Act, it gives protected classes more power to legally challenge potential polarized voting practices. And sometimes this is initiated through the district themselves, but it seems much more common, at least recently, that districts will receive a notice of intent to challenge based on potential racially polarized voting practices. And so I think it's of the best interest for districts to do the transition just to potentially avoid large legal fees. And so I think you guys have decided to do that as well, and we will go forth with creating our divisions. And so this is just a little example of what a division-based district would look like. We'd have a district here with 5 divisions. Those divisions would divided population equally. Each division would have a director, and all of the voters within that division would therefore vote for that director in that division. Whereas the at-large, how you currently have it, all of the voters of that district vote for your directors. And this is sort of a timeline. I think we do have all of the dates set in stone. So the first couple of meetings, including tonight, will be the pre-map hearings, which will be, the second one will be essentially the same presentation, short and sweet, if there is more public involvement, in case they missed the first one. After these first couple meetings, we will establish some divisions. We'll bring those to the first map consideration hearing. We'll talk a little bit about the process for that a little bit more in depth. We'll talk about what we like and dislike about each of the options. We'll take any comments from the first map hearing into the second map hearing, potentially bring in more options. And then in November, we will hopefully vote for a final map. So a little bit introduction to districting. Like I said, this is really based on the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965, which essentially establishes criteria for how we do this. And so creating these districts, a couple things that we're looking to do is creating an equal population across the divisions. And what we're really striving to do is to have no more than 10% total deviation of population across those. But we're also looking to do is look at our racial vote dilution and what we would consider a majority minority division if it's at all possible. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And some of the terms we use for that are packing and cracking, how we pack in ethnic populations or how we crack those apart. And beyond the federal laws, we have some other traditional districting principles that we look to do. Some of those are creating contiguous divisions. We don't want a division that has, say, islands all over the place. We want it to be contiguous. We want it to be as compact as possible. We don't want long, strung out divisions. If at all possible, and this is more in the case for much larger districts that have a greater diversity of ethnicity, not necessarily, with your district is quite small, but if there are identifiable communities of interest, we want to try to maintain those as much as possible. And other things we look for are natural or man-made boundaries that make sense for creating those divisions. And the other two bullet points are more for redistricting, which you guys are going to have to do in 2030 when the new census comes out. But those are essentially just trying to maintain your current divisions as much as possible, not shaking things up too much or causing voters to be in other directors' divisions. And, there's a little bit of a difference in election years. I know that you guys have for your directors. So. And this would be an example more for if you're redistricting, but it also makes sense. This is the process that we use when we're initially creating your divisions. But so say on the left, if we already had divisions created, over time, the population will kind of move around across those divisions, and the equality and numbers of population will kind of be jumbled up a little bit. And so basically, during a redistrict process, we would just slightly alter those lines to reestablish more equal population across those divisions. But this is really the process I'm going to use in initially creating your divisions. And so, this is an easy take. You get, say, a total census count of 20, 4 divisions. Obviously, you'd want 5 people in each division, ideally. And I talked a little bit about creating majority and minority divisions. And based on the Voting Rights Act, if it's at all possible to do, we need to look at doing that. And so on the left side here, we see an example of having 4 divisions where your minorities would make up only a quarter of the population per division. And on the right, just by slightly altering those division lines, you could see where the center division would make up a majority minority, therefore giving that ethnic class a stronger vote. So if it's possible to do that, we have to look at doing that. Now, with San Ynez district, is that possible? From what I can tell, it's not. Based on the 2020 census, it looks like there's about roughly 3,300 people. 76% of it is white. You have a 16%, give or take, Hispanic population. So one of the biggest things that we have to do, like I said, is an equal population. So with 5 divisions, we're looking at about 660 people per division. Plus or minus total deviation of 10%. The biggest ethnic group is Hispanic with about 540 people. So you can see, it is possible with those numbers to make a majority minority. However, that population Hispanic would have to be concentrated in one area enough to be able to create that majority minority. And from what I can see, the Hispanic population in the district is pretty spread out, so it doesn't look possible. But other things that we can look at are the CVAP, also known as citizen voting age population, and that would be your population 18 and over. We can look at both the total population of CVAP and the ethnic breakdown to see what that tells us. And then other things we can use are things like growth rate. I feel like you in the district, certain areas of your district much better than I do. And there might be particular areas that are growing or shrinking faster. We can use that information to help guide the division making process. And so this is basically the process that I'll use for the divisions. I'm going to be using census block data, election precinct data, voting data. I will take that information, the information I gather from you, community, bring that to the pre-map meetings. Again, we'll have another one in a month. Based on all of that input, I'll use that to help guide me in creating divisions. I will come to, we'll have a public meeting in 2 months to show the first couple options that we create. We'll talk about those a little bit, and then finally we'll have a final map adopted. And then during that process, I'm going to be putting all of my output onto an online interactive map. And so if you download this, there's actually a link. But I'll show some demographic data. I'll show the district boundary. I'll show the options. I think I do have some of the sewer data that we might use to sort of look at creating those divisions. But any other data that you guys might think it would be useful, I can throw on here as well. And there's also a QR code to the map. And how can people provide input? Obviously, coming to these public meetings, submitting a letter or email to you guys, looking at things like communities of interest, talking about any of the draft map options once they're provided, and any questions regarding this process. And that's it from me. Any questions?
Bradley?
Yeah, my only question is just, and it's not a question, it's just maybe to go back to the presentation. So the next board meeting, we're going to look at virtually the same presentation.
Yeah.
And
that's
okay.
typical when we do these pre-map meetings. So if there's questions that I get emailed that were a little confusing to people, maybe I'll add a couple slides, but it's typical we just want to make sure that the community, I feel like a lot of time, we've done this quite a bit. It seems like in between the first and second meeting, there's usually some people that come out of the community that I didn't hear about this. And so we just want to make sure that they're getting that information. So.
Okay. That's all I had, just to confirm. Thank you.
Okay. Wouldn't it make more sense to do a 3-district and 2 at-large seats?
I didn't quite make more sense to do what?
Maybe 3 districts and 2 at-large streets, 2 at-large seats. Instead of trying to split up the small town into 5 sections, it'd be easier to split it up into 3 and then have 2 at-large seats.
Yeah, I think we talked about that at the ad hoc meetings, and I think we brought in some legal counsel. You guys had talked to a lawyer, and I think that wasn't an option. So you were talking about having 3 divisions and then a couple open at large. Is that what your question is? Yeah, and I think we looked at that option, and it just wasn't possible, unfortunately. And I know for a district at your size, it makes it extremely difficult, for splitting up into 5 divisions, but unfortunately it just doesn't seem to be an option.
Can you do 4-1? I mean, what's the reasoning behind that it's not an option?
We did engage legal counsel with that question because we were curious, and I know we had at least that thought in other conversations as well.
Yeah.
And he didn't think that we would minimize our chance of being challenged by doing that. And so he recommended that we stay with the five divisions.
We don't have somebody running in one of the divisions that opens up the entire district.
I know that, and maybe Karen actually probably knows more about this than I do, but it becomes an appointment. I think you witnessed that possibly in Salting, something like that happened.
Yes, it would be an appointed position then. There's nobody ran.
Right.
In that one district.
And it has to be from that district.
Yeah, but they don't have to be from that district, or that's what happened last time. Involvement, but I don't know what the reason, but I think maybe they would have to be from that district.
No,
No.
But
you can't make someone be on the board if they don't want to.
Right.
So it would have to be open to the entire valley, I would think.
I think Karen probably has some insight.
Aaron,
Thank you. No, we don't force people to be on the board, but the only people who would be eligible would be people living in the district where like, let's say only 3 districts had candidates or races and 2 did not. Well, we do a 3-2 deal. Let's say when we have 2 people up for reelection, nobody runs, then the 3 remaining people on the board would have to appoint from the appropriate district.
Again, how do you make someone be on a board?
Right. That's
You
why I thought.
you don't make them be on a board, but just as we can't say anyone who wants to serve on this board can serve, they currently have to live within our district. If somebody from Ballard applies to be on our district, we say, sorry, you're out of the district. Matter of fact, I believe
That's totally different than having a district of, I'll use Jan and Acres, and we go knock on every single door in Jan and Acres and say, one of you people have to be on the board?
well, Jan and
They-
Acres isn't in our
No.
district, but let's say West Santa Ynez, nobody ran, then we would put out an application in the newspaper and request that somebody from this district apply. And we've been through this process multiple times. Bradley was initially appointed, as were you, but it has to be from the district. We will not be able to appoint somebody that lives in District 1 to a District 3 empty seat. And what happens is if we're unable to do it, then the county appoints someone. If the county is unable to find anyone to do it, then we would run a board with 4 people, with 3 people. It's not ideal. That's a risky thing that could happen here. But if it came down to the county making an appointment, often the county has people who support the 3rd district supervisor or, whoever, and they have somebody that serves on one of their committees that they might be able to entice to serve on our board. Hopefully it would never come to that. And I like it far better when people are elected, because I think most of the people, everyone on this board has seen how divisive it can become when we're doing appointments rather than allowing our voters to choose who represents them.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Karen, I know once the divisions are established and the current board members aren't in their own separate division, they are able to carry out their full term. And when their term is finished, then a new board member for that particular division will have to be elected.
well, the thing that I'm looking at is Bradley just moved, but before Bradley moved, there could have been 4 of us all in one district.
So we would have-
Yeah, I
knew
need it. Yeah, it very well could be. Yeah. That may be the case.
And it will definitely change our board makeup, but this is
Yeah.
how we must move forward. Our board, even the previous board, tried to figure out a way where we did not have to submit to this, but it's just very difficult. And this is how California is doing elections. And, we can make the case for either side. It may be a rough start, but eventually it may end up being a good thing. I think, especially when we first start, we may be faced with difficulty finding candidates. But I say we give it a chance and see how it plays out.
I still think that having at least one at large would be better. And I just don't see that if the district would have it. If the district, and we have one at large, it should not make a difference for us being exposed.
I don't know what we get exposed for. We don't have a minority to
But
protect.
it's the shyster lawyers that are trying to go in and get you to pay the $30,000 fee and all that.
Don't you pay the $30,000 fee if you have aggrieved a minority group? We don't have a minority group. I mean, if the Hispanic.
Nobody has ever won the lawsuit.
Are you
Yeah,
serious?
that's exactly it. And that's the problem, even though, Yeah.
Want to be the first one to cost us billions, that's the problem.
Yep.
It's the way the law was written, and
Okay,
it should be rewritten,
yeah,
you know.
I
It's just like the
will be on
handicap-
my computer.
It's just like the handicap years ago, when they used to go around and sue for the handicap veterans.
Yes.
But this is,
Through it.
I'm
Keep
not saying.
voting. Keep
Whatever,
voting for the
but-
representation that we have now, and we can keep going down this road. This is just how it's gonna be. There's a super majority, and as long as that's how it is, this is how, we have to comply. It is not good, and I don't like people top downing a small, local government agency, but this is our political reality, and so we have to adapt, and this is how we move forward until there's a change.
Oh, yeah, you guys are definitely not alone. This is pretty common situation throughout California. A lot of small districts are going through the same headache, and I think we're all in
And-
agreement with that.
Is this like a state law that's actually state legislation that this falls under, or are they trying to put it under the Civil Rights Act? I want to know who I need to talk to.
It's AB 182, California Voting Rights Act, and then you fall under specific district bills as well. So there's the education for school districts. You guys have certain bills as well.
Okay.
It's just like right now with water districts is the chromium 6.
I
The
don't know.
chromium 3
I don't know what that is.
well,
Mineral and water.
is mineral and water.
Okay,
Federal guidelines are 1 part per B.
okay.
State guidelines right now are 50 parts. They want to change it to 10 for California, which means that anybody that's a private water district, like Janet Acres and like Skyline Park, we're currently at 13. That means I have to put in a full treat, a full abatement for it, which could cost $1 million.
Standing this water district has to do.
Right. And we're 94 homes.
4 homes?
94 homes.
94 homes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
The people
these are
have spoken.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's the regulations you can't control.
We voted for this, not as individuals, but there's clearly a super majority that is for this. And this is going to be how it is for a while.
So there's no motion necessary for this action item. It was more of the presentation by Plan West Partners. And we'll have the presentation, like Jason said, next month as well. And we'll probably be at least presenting a portion of this at the open house as well, too, just to include the process in one more step.
And thank you, Jason, very much. And I think that your interactive map and looking for areas that we can focus on is excellent. And I like that you are keeping in mind the people who are currently on sewer, people who are primarily on septic. That too will change, but we're going to have an opportunity to revisit this as a board, maybe not as individual board members in 2030.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to now. each home at least 1 cent.
So we have
Nothing simple anymore.
A criminal rate.
the next item is item C. It's the resolution to adopt the final draft of the fiscal year 23-24 budget. The board basically approved us being able to go out to do the public notice of the budget, which was done in the San Ynez Valley News in accordance with the requirements. And the board has reviewed this budget without modifications at the last board meeting, and finance committee had 3 different meetings in regard to this budget as well. So we're essentially we're looking for a motion to if there's no recommended changes to adopt the district budget.
That's a truck all of a sudden taking a nosedive. Do we really need to?
Well, what we talked about this at the last meeting too, and I have on that very last page of the board memo itself, just 1 page over from where you're on. There's deferred capital projects equipment, and they're not included in the budget this year. And one of those is the 2004 truck replacement. So even though we mention it and it's been part of the discussion over time.
It's the long term.
Are this 2004 truck replacement going to be a 4-wheel drive?
Well, it's not even in the budget this year. So if we did want a truck, we could do it independent. It might be an independent board decision.
Are we considering electric?
We might have to at some point.
I make a motion that we adopt the district budget for 2023-2024 via attached resolution 23621A.
There's a motion for the proposed motion as shown on the agenda. Is there a second?
I second.
A second by Director Paddleford. We'll do a roll call vote for the motion. President Redfern,
Aye.
Director Paddleford, Director Beard, Director Van Pelt,
Aye.
Vice President Jones. She may not have heard. Did you say aye, Karen?
Did you call my name,
I
Mr.
did.
Dreisler?
Yes, I did. Vice President Jones?
Oh, aye. Sorry, it's starting to cut out again here on,
No problem. So the
I'm
motion
an
is
aye. Sorry for the
Aye,
bad connection.
we're happy you're here. Although it's fine, if I heard that. All right, so that was action item C. We're on to action item 7B. And this is to appoint our new office manager, Alicia Marin, board secretary. Part of the job description when we advertised for this was office manager, board secretary. But back in December, when we were in absence of a board secretary, the board appointed me a board secretary and the board treasurer. And so now that we have Alicia on board, we'd like to appoint her as the board secretary.
But you're doing such a good job. I think we should just.
I really enjoyed my moments as the board secretary. I'm ready for.
And as this position is basically the same as the previous, it's still, it's part of it, it's part of the position.
Yes, that position was, and I conferred with our labor negotiation attorney as well, that we're pretty much on hold as far as the job description. So the job description that was approved by the board, I believe in 2013, is the same one we advertised, except for the board secretary is not at the will of the board. It is more of an employee relationship with the general manager. So that's the only deviation from that originally approved.
What does that difference mean to us?
Well, the difference to you means that if you didn't want the board secretary, office manager, that you could make that decision to fire that person. So this is more like the other employees where I would be the one responsible for firing employees that were no longer living up to the district's expectation.
Oh,
Other than that, it's the same job description.
Yeah. And at one point we had discussed having a more or less assistant for Z that is not.
Right, we had this, we had talked about that and some of the informal discussions, and for the interim, we're continuing to use Ivy Bailey to do some of the cross-referencing of some of the financial interests of the district. And I think when we finished this last audit, we were a little bit behind in terms of that audit. So now we're right on top of the next audit, and they're going to at least stay on through this next audit. And then we're going to try to, put a more definition to the role of Ivy Bailey instead of, we've sort of been doing things as we needed them to get done. And once the audit's complete, then we're going to try to define their role and what exactly they'll be doing for us. But I think that's the interim for now. And the beauty of that situation is that we can stop using them at any time.
I make a motion that we appoint Office Manager Alicia Marin as Board Secretary.
I'll second that.
A motion as shown on the agenda was by Vice President Jones and seconded by Director Beard. We'll do a roll call vote. President Redburn. Aye. Director Palliford.
I,
Director Beard.
Aye.
Director Van Pelt.
Aye.
Vice President Jones.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. We're on to item E, which is the adopt the resolution for sewer service charges fees to be collected fiscal year 23-24 tax rolls. This is a theme and variation of the budget. We presented this at the last board meeting. We did our public notice as required for the tax roll, so that the public is aware that we are doing this. There is a recommended proposed motion for this, and I know that we will need to get the information that the County of Santa Barbara needs by August, I believe, is what's included here. So that is what we're looking for with this action item, is the adoption of the resolution that goes along with the tax roll.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Director Beard and a second by President Redburn.
We have to do this yearly, right?
Yeah. We'll go to the roll call. President Redburn.
Aye.
President Palliford.
I,
President Beard, or Director Beard.
Aye.
Director Van Pelt.
Aye.
And it looks like Karen may have dropped off. Except for I see the Pelt up there.
there she is.
Now
They
she's up
skinned her
there.
for a thing.
That was funny. Looked like she was like underneath the table.
Well, we'll do the motion approved as a 4-0 for the time being, and then we'll wait for Director Jones's return. But the motion would pass 4-0 regardless. And I do have to, there she is. We lost you for a moment, and you're on mute, Karen.
And I vote aye on the collecting via the tax rolls. If we had that vote.
Yes, we did. Thank you, though. So the motion passed 5-0.
Thank you.
And we're on item F. This is been presented at previous meetings. We did not do this at the last meeting, but the last time we did talk about this, there was some request that the staff do a little further analysis on what the pros and cons may be in terms of the Chumash proposed administration buildings having their wastewater go to the Chumash wastewater treatment plant or to Solvang wastewater treatment plant. At one of the previous meetings, our legal counsel wanted us to contact the city of Solvang just to make sure that they knew about this and if they had a position, and they did get back to us saying that they didn't have a position on this. So that it was basically up to us to make that decision. I did put a simplified chart on the second page of this that sort of outlines the comparison with Solvang wastewater treatment plant. There's about 4 different bullets, and I tried to align the left with the right bullets in terms of whether it made, whether there was some common ground on some of those. I did look into, tried to balance it out as well as I could. The thing that I believe stands out the most is probably that third bullet on the left-hand side, that if the Chumash do end up treating the wastewater from their administrative buildings, that would allow some additional capacity for the district that would equal about 5 or 6 additional homes and 5 or 6 additional capacity fees. And counter to that, on the other side, the district would get a one-time capacity fee of approximately $21,000. And then the next bullet below that one is that we would also get an annual income of about $4,000. I did have to do this determine on preliminary plans, so those numbers could change depending on what the final plans end up looking like, and that would be based on how many bathroom facilities they have in each building. And so we did some estimations based on that, those numbers. So that's why I did put to be determined based on the county approved site plans and floor plans. The other positive that we talked about previously is that the wastewater that would go to the Chumash would be recycled and used for irrigation and essentially going back to the same aquifers that the water was taken from. And to counter that was Solvang wastewater treatment plant is also planning to do recycled water with the future upgrades. And we're not sure what that time frame would be.
They've talked about it, but they have they do recycled water, but they have to put that recycled water.
And so
they
they're
don't have the infrastructure and the cost of building the infrastructure.
Right. It could be many years before they work out details and find out. And so for me, I was trying to balance both sides of the equation out and then just to give the board a chance to think about some of the things that were written here and then offer some additional input on the pros and cons of wastewater going to the casino, wastewater treatment plant or Solvang. And it looks like Karen has her hand up unless somebody else has it.
Go ahead, Karen.
Go ahead, Director Jones.
She might be frozen. I think she
Oh,
is.
she does.
Oh,
Oh, there she is.
You're back.
Go ahead, Karen.
Oh, thank you. I think that this is a very fair look here from our general manager. And it looks like all in all, it's a push. I think one thing that should be considered, there's a couple of considerations, obviously, that aren't on here. But one of them is we received a letter a little under 2 years ago when Mr. Acosta was our general manager, notifying us that we may no longer be needed in our contract. And then in public, the council for the Chumash also let us know that during our appointment process that they were considering not having our contract. So, I think that there's a little more stability with the Solvang contract, and I think that should be a consideration. And then, of course, I've mentioned before that we had a lot of pressure to make a decision tonight.
You broke up so badly, I didn't understand what you were trying to say.
Just that last, oh, she might be
Frozen.
frozen again too. I think it was just the last part, right? I did,
She's frozen.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
But we did hear that she mentioned the letter when GM Acosta was here versus
Right.
Solvang's contract that might be more stable.
Right, but I like
It
the
looks like she might be back. We didn't hear just the last portion of what you had said, Director Jones. We heard the portions about the contracts, and then there was one last thing on the back of that that we just missed.
Oh, sorry, cutting out again, but the lack of that we have far more stability with the Solvang one, especially in light of being notified of that a couple of times. And then the other point that I wanted to make is that this is not a decision that we have to make tonight. I think that you give us a lot to think about, review, and continue to get feedback from the people we represent. And maybe this does not cover every concern or consideration, either pro or con.
And we still need a legal contract, so that's something that has to be done. Because we can't possibly let them do their own water without some sort of protection for us. But, and I also think that because we're not going to be getting their fees, that they should pay the one-time capacity fee and like a buyout.
I missed, excuse me, I think I heard most of what Director Paddlefort said, but I wanted to clarify. Were you saying that the agreement, since it must include specific legal explanation of why this represents a unique exemption, that legal opinion should come from the Shumash, that we should not be paying our attorneys to make the case for them?
I don't really care who does the contract, to be perfectly honest. It might be in our benefit that we do the contract, and have them, take our contract as opposed to us taking their contract. We're gonna have to pay an attorney either way, because we're not gonna sign a contract without our lawyer go over.
We would definitely, yes.
Yes, and the other thing I said is.
Absolutely, absolutely, but I don't know that, okay.
But I do think on the side of the Indian, that if they can start using their wastewater to water their buildings and maybe the lawns and the reservation, maybe whatever developments are happening in the triangular property, that our groundwater is pretty damn low, and getting to use that water twice is definitely beneficial to the community. Who knows when we're gonna get a decent rain again or for how long? And I think being able to recycle some of that water is a great saving, because we keep seeming to be able to throw in all kinds of grapes and everything else that sucks up all our groundwater. Any recycling or repurposing water, I gotta say, I'm pretty interested in it.
Okay, so you don't want to let them out?
I say that that's a benefit that I didn't see here.
Well, that's
It is, one of the cons is that it's recyclable.
Well,
If you hate that in
that could be a,
positive recycle, right here, right here, positive recycle.
well, it could be thousands of gallons of water that doesn't come out of the ground.
I think it's a benefit. I don't think Solvang is going, anytime in the near future, is going to be using their recycled water if they put it in. And the one thing I think that, because that portion of their plant, we as the CFP should not be financially responsible for.
Okay, so playing devil's advocate, if we get tough on this, and then they pull their contract,
Doesn't matter, they can pull their contract.
Pull the contract anyway.
And it's not gonna be over that.
Yeah, it's not gonna be over that. I think, I have mixed feelings about the fees. I think that, I don't wanna see us lose at least the one-time fee.
Yeah.
But I also see the positive of it going to be recycled. I also see his, Director Redford's point.
Yeah.
I think we're crazy not to encourage them to do this.
I,
Myself, just knowing that we've just been through one hell of a drought where it was bloody scary looking at the lake there, and Bricker was dry. Anything we can do to conserve water.
Right.
I really think, and it's gonna come to where we have to. So we should be looking ahead at that, because I don't see things getting better. There's just more and more homes coming in, gonna use more water. We should be really thinking about recycling water.
Looks like Karen had her hand up, and then Bradley also has his hand up.
I will try and make mine quick. I agree that all of these things are important considerations. And in light of the fact that we're having our open house, we also had spoke recently about getting our newsletter back out there. This is the sort of thing that would be great to get public input, kind of like the annexation. The board had very definite, strong feelings about it, but later the community felt as though they weren't properly noticed. The board felt like they had noticed us. So this is something, I think these points are good and should be presented. And lots of transparency here before we actually put it to a vote. That's my final comment, unless I have another comment. But
Bradley?
Yeah, my only comment was I recall from many meetings ago that when I asked a question about how the Shumash would be able to pull the contract, my recollection is that they couldn't pull our contract as easily as we believe they can pull the contract. I could be mistaken. It'd be very helpful if we could review that and ask a question of counsel. But my recollection is quite clear that we think that they can pull the contract, but they can't just unilaterally just pull the contract, even with notice. There has to be some kind of events that transpired. And again, even then, my recollection is that it would be really hard for them to get out of this contract. They might be able to find a way through just wearing us down, but I think it's something we have to look into, because it looks like, from what I hear, is that we're under this assumption that they can walk away from this contract, and thus we have to be very careful. I think we should always be careful with our partners, and considering that the Shumash are partners to a certain regard. But I think we need to clarify exactly the nature of the contract and what would have to transpire for them to be able to walk away from this.
I have a comment on that too. I think that they're not crazy enough to walk away from the contract, because they're being offered training that is very short. They need an operator 4. And what are they gonna do, hire our operator 4?
But remember, they don't need an operator for, they went.
Right, but they don't have the sewer plant working right or up or running. You can't run the casino. When the casino can't flush, all the gambling stops.
Yeah.
They're not gonna risk that.
I'm not gonna make my decision on the contract.
I just don't see them.
I don't think that's really part of what we should be looking into is whether we're gonna leave the contract. I think it's,
I think a large part of it is the benefit too.
what's the benefit and what's the right thing to do for the CSD and for the sewer treatment. We have sent our affluent to them. And, during the pandemic, to keep their plant alive, and I don't think it's an issue.
Well, just to restate my point, fellow directors, it's not so much on whether, we're going to make our decision based on it, but we're falling under certain assumptions. So I think we have to get clarification from council on exactly the nature of the contract so that we either don't, bring it back up in these conversations. That's all I'm suggesting is I think it would be prudent of us to get some advice and some legal counsel on the nature of the contract. So therefore we could either be a part of the conversation or we can just shelve it and it doesn't come up in any remarks. That's all I have to say.
Director Jones? Director Jones? Karen? Karen? She did. Karen?
And she's unmuted.
Yes, I believe I'm unmuted. I agree with the Director Van Pelt, and I also share his memory. Of course, I'm not taking anything on this list as the sole determinant. And I still think back to the annexation, and I think transparency, getting input from our constituents and knowing everything that we can know and not shoot from the hip or make assumptions, but be informed, be transparent, give proper notice to the people in our district, and move forward in a way that is best for our district. I think, once again, circling back, I think that this is a very good starter, pros and cons. There may be some considerations we haven't thought of, and I do think it's important, as noted by Director Paddleforth, that there has to be a compelling, unique circumstance. So until we get all that information, I think we've made a very good start at the discussion here, and it gives us an opportunity to get more information and more input. Director Redfern is right. The drought, the recycle, all that is should be taken into consideration, and no one thing should be our deciding point.
Well, I think we're all in agreement with you, Karen.
Do we know when this project is gonna be finished? I mean, like,
Last time we had this discussion, we had a representative from the planning agency that was doing the preliminary planning, and they were still in the preliminary planning stage, so I think he suspected it was at least a couple years.
cool.
And I think the other thing we tried to remind the planner and the developers of this is there is wastewater will be provided to the administrative building, one way or the other. And I think they're mostly satisfied with that response. It's just who's going to provide the wastewater. I mean, and just one other thing, this is a pretty nuanced item, and this is the third time I think we talked about it at a board meeting, and so there is at least a little bit of public opportunity to be involved in this process, and so maybe we can do a little bit more, but in some way you have to be a little bit careful because it is so nuanced, and in some ways it's not quite a neutral decision in many ways, but in other ways it probably should be.
Are you,
Yeah,
when you say nuanced, you mean that we don't want our constituents to be involved in the discussion?
No, I'm just saying that we should include them, and they've had, I think part of my thought process was they've had 3 opportunities in terms of board meetings to be part of the process, and that doesn't exclude involving them more, but the discussions over time have evolved, and we just have to, when we do represent it to the public, we have to make sure that they understand the pluses and the minuses.
Well, I think your document, your outline here is a good start, but I also harken back to that 2016 annexation where people had a year of meetings they could have weighed in. And unfortunately, people think of us, they don't even know we exist. They think we're part of the water board. But the minute a big change happens, everybody wants to know why they weren't informed. And I think it was Director Paddleforth, maybe a meeting or 2 ago, who wasn't here during that part of our board, where people were elected on the transparency to get more people involved. We fought like tigers to just be able to do a newsletter. So, just generally keep people informed who we are, where we are, and that they have this opportunity to put in their 2 cents or to ignore us. It's been my experience in the 7 years I've been on this board that a lot of times people really do think that we're the agency next door. So I think we can do a better job. I'm really happy about the open house. I think that's a good start.
All right.
We don't need to vote on this, so.
No voting necessary on this action item. Thank you for your input. I appreciate it. So item G is adopt a resolution for the board of directors compensation increase. The proposed motion is available at the top of the board memorandum. One of the main items, I just want to recognize it from and including Wednesday, April 19th, 2023 to including today, to not including today. That result is I should have had 63 days after that 63. And so if you look at some of the requirements on the table for going through this process, the ordinance would take effect 60 days from the adoption. So we are 60 days plus of the original board meeting. And so now, as I understand from legal counsel, that we are now going to do the resolution just so our board policy aligns with the ordinance that we approved 60 plus days ago. So the resolution is on the second page, and I tried to highlight the numbers, the totals, just so they were easy to find inside the resolution. These were the numbers that we discussed, that it was $175 for meetings and special board meetings. The other committee meetings would be $87.50. And then on the very back page, there's the maximum compensation that was $600 previously to this. Ordinance.
Where's the health insurance back?
I make a motion that the board adopts the resolution amending section 20 of the board policy manual to make it consistent with the ordinance.
I seconded.
There is a motion by Vice President Jones to a proposed motion as written in the agenda, and President Redfern second that motion. I'll do a roll call vote. President Redfern.
Aye.
Director Paddleford.
Aye.
Director Beard.
Aye.
Director Van Pelt.
Aye.
Vice President Jones.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was a reasonable effort to get that through. We're on information items now. And the open house was one of the information items I did put in your manual. And I think I will share this on the screen if I can bring it up. At least the draft version of this, I'll bring this up. So hopefully you can see it, Karen and Bradley. I'm working on it. You can see that?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, very good. So I was trying to, my main goal, I have done a few different open houses with different service districts. And the main goal with these mass mailers really is to make sure they know what it's about. And most of the things I've read look at 3 to 5 bullets at the most. That's the most anybody will look at, especially if it's a mass mailer. They're might not exactly sure what that is. So I tried to keep the information simple and short, but informative at the same time, but also happy to take some suggestions I found a nice rendering of the building from the server and thought it would be good to add that building just to make it known that when they recognize that building, they might think of San Ynez Community Services District. So I think we had scheduled the time and the date, and Director Paddleford and I had talked a little bit about maybe extending the times, or if we do get enough people that say that time is not convenient, then we could either have an open house or try to extend those hours. But for right now, I felt like 10 to 2 is a pretty good time on a Saturday for people to be able to come by if they have a moment with the address and then the main items that I'm hoping to present for that open house is the proposed feature sewer line expansions and also talk about the voting divisions that we discussed tonight. And then, of course, any other questions they might have about the district. And then I know there were some side items, and one of them was refreshments, and one of the you remember the one person from the public that we had at the last meeting had come down after that meeting to talk to me. He of course suggested that we have beer at the open house, and that might get more people. And said, as a public agency, I don't think we're going to be able to do that. Right. But it was a friendly discussion, nonetheless. Nonetheless.
I was thinking like maybe chips and guacamole, you know, not bourbon and scotch.
I was thinking maybe get a carafe of coffee.
You can have a drawing for something for people that showed up.
A drawing,
yeah, some gift to be a bottle of wine.
It looks very nice, Locke. I like the I hope that our building looks like that on July 8th.
Well, I know we have been doing a significant amount of ground movement out there in the landscape area. The weeds after the rains this winter, there was quite a bit. Just the weed removal was a pretty big project all by itself. And then now we're removing some of the soil, a couple inches worth, so that we can put some drought tolerant gravel and some other rocks probably in the area, and then leaving the trees obviously where they are.
I would donate some plants that are drought tolerant. Guys, we'd like some.
You need succulents like my mother-in-law.
Okay, well that's great to hear, because we probably will take you up on that.
Let me know. I'm happy to bring some over.
Does she come with?
Well, let me put it this way. Her hobby was doing succulents. Now she can't remember they're there.
Oh,
Guess who gets to take care of them?
I got it.
Do you guys have any type of water system out there?
There is a water system out there, and we've left it intact.
Good.
So, yeah, it's a little, I mean, it's a little bit strange, and maybe we just have to take advantage of what's there, but.
Drip system or anything.
Is this gonna be in black and white?
I think so. Well, the rendering itself is already black and white. It was a black and white rendering, so there wasn't any color on that rendering, and I assume this is back from the architectural plans from when the building was proposed.
Can we use that? Is that public?
Yeah, I saw it on another. I was looking through some of the old newsletters, and it was included in some of the old. And I think most of the time when you have consultants do work for you for your property, the plans are essentially yours. So I'm gonna assume that's the case with this too. But I had seen it in other publications with the district. It's a nice rendering.
Director Redfern, I defer to you on the landscaping as far as like the thumbs up.
Well, I'm happy to donate some time to help you guys lay it out.
Well, even I'm interested in just what you think when you look at it. I think you've got a great eye. Although
Yeah,
Locke is proving to be quite a asset in that department as well.
Yeah, very good. I appreciate the assistance. So some of the items on the open house that I had on here, we got the mailer. I know we talked about a brochure before, And that'll take a little more effort, and hopefully we'll have something by the time the open house is available. But I wanted to have a continuous slideshow up on the screen during the open house, and possibly the voting divisions up on the screen with the thing he just showed us, just have it going through the cycle and recirculating as we go, and to add something about the open house to the website. And I know that we talked about Facebook notice. And then we also have a mailing list of people that have signed up on our website, of quite a few people that just get the agenda every month, regardless. So definitely contact them because they've already shown interest in the district. And then I've had assorted people, especially after the rains, from different areas of the district that have reached out to me to say they're interested in this too. So I think we'll be able to, if we're going to reach almost everybody in the district, I hope, and then hopefully get some people that have already shown interest.
Be sure to go see Mrs. Ivy.
Alicia's indirectly met Mrs. Ivy on the phone yesterday.
That's
Hope it
brief.
went well.
It was brief.
All right, very good. Well, thank you for the input on the open house.
I have are we pretty much covered everything?
I think, well, we have a couple other information. We did talk about legal counsel RFPs already, so that is something we've already discussed. And if you want a quick update, I could do that. Otherwise, I did want to give you a quick update on the Hart access driveway. That's the property between Horizon and 246. We regraded and recompacted that driveway, and he was, I understand, more than satisfied when it was done, so that was great. It met some of his expectations in terms of being able to get his bike out of the driveway without feeling like something was going to happen. And we also fixed a small subsidence area around the manhole on his property. It's one of the ones closer to the fence, and he parks one of his trailers over that. So indirectly, we would have done this work anyhow, and he wanted some confirmation that we do the work anyhow. But part of that was also Jack Martin, who's doing the extension on Pico over to the Horizon line, needs to get an easement document signed by Mr. Hart. So we're trying to show a lot of good faith in the district, and I know we talked about this at board meetings too. So hopefully, Mr. Martin will be able to get that signature from Mr. Hart for that easement, for the construction of that extension. And that's all I have for the information items.
I have one question. It looks like the units are being finished up by El Rancho. Has anything done a walkthrough to see if there's kitchens or anything are through the units yet?
I know that Craig and I went over there a couple weeks ago, and we didn't go inside the units just because there was some construction work at the time. And I know that we have plans on site for those as well. So there are kitchen and bathrooms in those units. But do you want to?
I just wondered because they were telling us that so many of them didn't have kitchens and they were looking for a reduced cost.
Oh, right. I think I've seen that memo somewhere in my travel.
So I was just following up on that and just wondered if anyone had actually checked.
No, not unit to unit, but
it's golden.
Oh, okay, the new units, okay. How do they not have a kitchen?
I guess they have a general eat cafeteria.
Oh, okay.
For some.
well, and I think what you were saying was that originally when you were in negotiations, kind of loose term, of what we were going to charge for the capacity fees, that they were based on the calculations of what the plan had shown.
Those are almost done.
I know, that's why I was wondering what they had in there.
Okay, so like I never really got an answer on the refreshments. I know, just say yes, just say no, July 8th is like around the corner, so it's not like we can bring it up at the next meeting.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think we should have something easy. I was thinking about a carafe of coffee at least for the morning, and then maybe cold drinks in the afternoon. And I don't know about actual things to eat, but
Pancake breakfast.
pancake breakfast, yeah.
Waffles, no thanks. Bring in the waffle machine.
Are you cooking?
Oh, have you not seen the waffle machine? Oh my God, it's the best thing in the world.
So I mean, we're officially done with the meeting according to the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I will make
Somebody-
that motion.
Too late.
There was a motion to adjourn by President Redburn and a second by Director Paddleford and a secondary motion by Vice President Jones. So I'll do the roll call. President Redburn,
Aye.
Director Paddleford,
I
Director Beard. Aye. Director Van Pelt,
Aye.
Vice President Jones,
Aye.
There you go.
very good. That motion to adjourn was approved 5-0. I'm gonna turn off, I'll be in the
Well, my
process of turning.
screen froze. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Be safe.
Thank you both
Thank you.
online. Okay.
Recording stopped.
The YouTube folks are still on here, which